Let's call this regular City Council meeting on March 16th to order. Please call the roll.
Bergeron.
Here.
Gage.
Here.
Flora.
Here.
Kiefer.
Here.
Coos.
Yes.
Zingy.
Here.
Williams.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So at this time, I'm going to deviate a little bit. I think I'd just like to ask for a moment of silence and prayer for those who have lost their lives and everybody that was impacted by the crash, and also in recognition of the passing of Billy Williams, a longtime statesman for the city of Ketchikan. Thank you. Our sincere condolences go out to everybody. Under communications, we have lot 1 in order regards to the Loyal Order of Moose. We also, I have laid on the table communication from the Alaska Municipal League requesting signatures of the mayor. I didn't want to get ahead of the council, so at some point I'll ask beforehand for approval to do that. And there's also a lot in regards to our participation in the inaugural cruise of the Norwegian Joy. And yeah, it's 6A1 will be the substitute lot for the Loyal Order of Moose. All right. So that brings us down to persons to be heard. Mary, yes.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having this meeting tonight. My name is Mary Stevenson. I'm in the tourism industry for 33 plus years, who's counting, and have a strength in not only being a tour guide, driving a tour bus, but also in transportation. I handed out to you my presentation, my thoughts for this meeting. I'll only review. Don't let you overwhelm you the first 3 pages, and let the rest of it be studied after the fact. And so I will start. Supply and demand. In previous industries, Ketchikan managed, seafood processors ran shifts long into the night, and timber couldn't be cut fast enough to be shipped out on pallets. Processed with the confines of a mill or a plant, the residents worked around trucks and container ships, departing the docks fully loaded with unchallenged supply and demand. Technology and docking system caught up with the process at the same time. Industries diminished. The economies from those operations were weakened, as well as harbors left with pollutants and cleanup. For the past 50 years, Southeast Alaska has transitioned from shipping and timber outbound to delivering tourists inbound. The commodity changed from crates to suitcases, freight containers to cruise ships, and travelers with money to buy adventure and explore Ketchikan. The supply and demand for tourism industry now becomes a marketplace for tour operators to showcase our natural habitat by air, land, and sea. We built it, and they are here. So we ask, how much is too much? From the B&A presentation in January, the industry's market share is dispersed among cities like Ketchikan, who have small ports with limited limitations and fiscal responsibility. If the auto industry can build for consumers, so should ship manufacturers. Can the Southeast ports find a diplomatic way to implement tough love and say no to the megaships? Our infrastructure and upland development cannot absorb the footprint health, and safety it leaves behind. There is no going back, and there's no guarantee our wildlife is going to stick around. In Mr. Amelan's letter and 50-page report, an article from Juneau Empire, April 19th, reported residents were asking the same question. What are the limits on the numbers of visitors? So we come back to quantity versus quality, and what is ever enough if it jeopardizes the health and safety of pedestrians and crosswalks, passengers in tour vehicles and aircrafts, and for that fact, on the ship itself. How many tourists and crew are too many for an island with 75 miles of road system and uncontrolled air and water space? When daily counts exceed the population of Ketchikan 1 to 2 times, that's 10 to 20,000 people. Below, I have listed a survey. I took the assessment of air, land, and sea operators and did a multi-purpose who is asking for a right-of-way, and you can see our streets, air, and waterways are quite congested. We can all agree the manufacturers will be making bigger ships. Mr. Amelan comment makes a very good point. Some of these larger vessels carry the same number of passengers as do ships that are now less than 1,000 feet in length. And I want to point to the schedule of the Eclipse, who was launched in 2010 with a 1,033-foot vessel carrying 2,850 passengers. Up against the new Cunard, Queen Elizabeth, which launched in 10, is coming in at 965 feet, and they're carrying 2,094 passengers. The point here is, if they are making them under that 1,000 foot, we are looking at a mid-sized marketplace that we, Ketchikan, could handle. It becomes apparent in my analysis of cruise ship inventory report later on in this paper, the cruise lines have a lot of floating inventory that is not ready to be decommissioned. Ships built in the 1990s are being refitted, putting in new decor, amenities, high-tech gaming, not to mention to the extent of retrofitting the entire ship and putting in a whole new section so that it adds to the length and also capacity in order to compete with the small, medium, and large marketplace. Norwegian Cruise Line refitted the Jewel last year, and it's 965 feet, carrying 2,376 passengers. We should know, as a port who gladly supports size and length and wants quality with quantity hospitality. Currently, Norwegian Cruise Line is sending 3 vessels, Holland American 8, Princess Cruise 7. Our small boutique explorers are coming in with 22 ships with less than 1,000 feet. Short-sighted on the part of the cruise industry to stop making mid-sized ships when half their market share are in ports like Southeast Alaska. And if we build to compete with the lifestyle of San Francisco, we have lost sight of Ketchikan's soul and heritage legacy left behind historic Ketchikan. In the Cruise Development Strategy Report for Berth 1 and 2, it requires $98.7 million of upgrades. The question is this including is this only the upgrades as mentioned in the 50-page report, or is there going to be additional expenses for the terminal, the gangways that are shown in the B and A proposal? If
you're going to be wrapping up pretty soon, Mary?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay, so then in summary, in my opinion, no one can forecast the future in world events, natural disasters, change in local and state government, or mergers and acquisitions at Wall Street. We live on an island with a big heart and limited budget. I urge that the council tonight postpone this vote. We have not had a public meeting since February of 2018, and there is a lot of questions that we have in this 50-page proposal that needs to be addressed to the community. Thank you. I also want to say that I went online to Norwegian Cruise Line for the Bliss, and Ketchikan is not even mentioned in their commentary as being a port that they visit. They list it on the itinerary. You have to click it to see what Ketchikan's all about, but it does not have us listed as a fun port to visit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Martha, comment?
Hi, guys. Short and sweet, okay? Okay, in regards to port expansion, some of the questions that should be asked is what is meant by taking over port operations? Also, does this include the dock vendor program? What and how will this affect local people's businesses? Are you guys listening? Hello? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
We're writing.
Okay, good. Are you going to? Oh, good. Okay, and what will the city do to make up the lost revenue if the local people leave? Who will run the KVB even though it's a private entity? And if the cruise line offers the city free cruises, why not take the one that through Alaska? I just recently took the Alaska cruise in the Skagway. You have to take a $2 3 city blocks to get downtown. It's a $2 private enterprise that gets a shuttle. If not, you have to walk. Here we offer free downtown shuttles. Nothing in life is free, so somebody's paying for that. Also, we've lost lots of parking on berth number 3 on Sunday, Mother's Day, of course. There was no parking for locals to park during the day. So there was almost road rage in a parking lot. And then I said, why, if the city council meetings are on public, why do you guys go behind closed doors for executive sessions? That's just a general question. So if it's public comment. Any comments, questions? No? Got it. Thank you.
Tori Corn.
Good evening. My name is Tori Korn. I'm here tonight as a Director of Business Development for Survey Point Holdings, and try to keep myself on task. I'll primarily read from my notes here. I'm trying not to get too far off topic. But for the past 67 years, Southeast Stevedoring has been an integral part of Ketchikan's waterfront, supporting the various industries working here. There have been many ups and downs, and our company's tried to adjust over the years as our export-based timber and fishing town has developed into a more distinctly seasonal-based economy with strong roots in tourism and fishing. As our company matured, we tried our best to diversify and keep up with emerging opportunities and have over time acquired or built companies like AMAC Towing, Temsco Helicopters, Cruise Line Agencies of Alaska, and the Ketchikan Dock Company. All of this now operates under the umbrella of Survey Point Holdings, and we're actively engaged in the industries that help Ketchikan thrive. We're proud of our organization and the more than 350 employees and their families that support and work with us and make up a large group of year-round residents, most of whom are members of the Ketchikan community. To say that we're concerned about the direction the city of Ketchikan seems to be headed with the future of our port is a vast understatement. The city of Ketchikan has for decades been able to grow and manage the port in a way that has allowed the industry to grow and prosper while maintaining an open port to all customers and using a system of historical berthing priority. We all agree that the growth of the cruise industry has and continues to place new demands on the city and our waterfront infrastructure. The process the city has gone through to reach this point that we're at today, we feel is flawed and sets us up to lose ownership and or control of our port and the historical practices that have made Ketchikan an attractive port of call to all of our customers and a great place to live. What is occurring today is not so dissimilar to what occurred in 2005 and 2006 when the city was under pressure to expand our berthing capacity to accommodate more and larger cruise ships. The city went through a public process led by B&A, the same consulting firm the city manager is recommending we hire sole source for this project, that resulted in a municipal bond vote of over $70 million intended to construct 2 new cruise ship docks that were needed to meet the demand of a growing industry. If you recall, the community voted this bond down, the effects of which enabled the city to construct only 1 new dock, which was berth 3 with the bond about a year later. Prior to the community's rejection of the $70 million bond issue, though, we had proposed developing the old waterfront storage as a private cruise ship dock that would be leased by the city. This proposal at the time was summarily rejected by city management that emphatically stated that the city would always own and control the city cruise ship docks. With the defeat of the bond issue, the city recognized the need to accept our plan for the city to lease Berth 4. We moved forward with the development of the waterfront storage, Nordby, and Taquan properties, acquired the necessary permits, and constructed what is now Berth 4, possession of which, following construction, was taken by the city under the Berth 4 lease. And we've quietly stood by as the Berth 4 lease has come under attack over the last couple of years, and stood by as some on this council have become enthusiastic in forming a partnership with a port developer or a cruise line to expand Berth 1 and 2, a plan which would have been rejected by city management in the past. Members of the council referred to the Berth 4 lease as the worst lease they've ever seen, and we take issues with these comments, as this lease was negotiated with a team from the city of then Mayor Bob Weinstein, council members Lou Williams and Chuck Freeman, and city manager Carl Amelon. The lease is well balanced and fair to both the city and our company. We obtained the institutional financing to construct Berth 4, thereby preserving the city's bonding capacity, and agreed the lease would be non-recourse if the city defaulted should the cruise ship stop coming to Ketchikan. The city pays the lease payments exclusively from passenger head tax, and the lease is a non-recourse lease. So if there are no head tax funds available, we're not paid, and we have no recourse against the city or its assets. The idea that somehow the city has a raw deal in this is just wrong. We feel that the same entrepreneurship and innovative thinking we used to develop Berth 4 can be used to expand Berth 1 at a much lower cost and a quicker timeline the city is looking at now. But we need to put a halt to this current approach of sole sourcing, engineering, and consulting, and sending out an RFP that potentially gives away ownership and control of our port if certain members of the council have their way towards following the BNA model. And we've disclosed our plan for expanding Berth 1 and 2 to some on the city management, the mayor, and some of the council members, and this would be a plan that would cost substantially less than being cited by the city, avoid a loss of control, and alleviate the cost and urgency of removing the pinnacle. Our proposal for expansion on Berth 1 has either been ignored or criticized without any effort on the city's part to explore its feasibility, cost savings, and opportunity preserves the city's sovereignty, ownership, and control of its port facilities. The expansion of our port is critical to Ketchikan in the next few years. We know there's a tremendous amount of pressure surrounding expansion of the port, and time is of the essence. But Ketchikan has a lot of talent and experts here that can put together better a plan that will allow for port development with the community's best interests at the forefront. We're asking you here tonight to please not approve the city manager's memo asking for authorization to prepare a request for proposals using BNA Partners Incorporated. We feel the recommended motion, if approved, almost certainly puts the city on a path that likely the community would not support, but also that will result in the loss of what has historically made the port so successful. Instead, we would ask the council to engage a community-led working group. We have sketches and models and ideas that could be a starting point to expand Berth 1 for a fraction of the cost of what the city has seen thus far, and still allow the city of Ketchikan to maintain its control of the port and historical berthing priorities. We strongly urge the council to table its enthusiasm to take away control and ownership of the city's port facilities and allow for a community-led committee, much the same as Mayor Weinstein did 10 years ago, to explore the benefits of developing Berth 4 under a lease arrangement and determine the feasibility of our plan or maybe another plan. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions. Yep.
Yeah.
I've talked to Bob, and I saw his plan, and I told him to submit it. I think it's a great idea. So I don't want you guys to just be discouraged and not submitting to anything. Anything we can get or any kind of proposals we can get to look at and have the committee look at, I'm all for. So
Okay.
I encourage you guys to make sure you submit them.
Okay, thanks.
It's cheaper.
Yeah, and we have received that, and we're not completely sure of what the design is going to look like yet. That's still to be decided. That will be part of the moving forward of this process. We learned a lot in regard to, what's coming our way in regard to cruise ships, and we have to think about what can we do to make sure that we have enough port structure for them. And it may not be just one; it may be one and two. And those are things that will have to happen. Past history has shown that, we partnered with your organization in regards to Berth 4, and this isn't much different than that, and we're not looking at turning over our ports to the cruising. That's not the plan. But there is a potential for funding of the port infrastructure without going to community debt service bonds. And if you're talking about a potential construction of all the port structures of 100,000, 150,000. That would double the debt service for the community. And I think there's other opportunities that we have to explore. And so by putting out an RFP doesn't mean that we have to accept any of it. But I think that is the process in order to move forward is we have to look for alternative funding sources.
And I think there's a lot of local opportunity for it too, though, and that would be a good place to go. Thanks.
Thank you.
Norman Ariola.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, staff. I'm kind of playing catch-up with the agenda from last month when the issue of on-site consumption of marijuana, but I see it's on your agenda, and I hope after the first reading and it goes to the voters, I hope they don't approve it. But in response to some of the concerns about the sale of marijuana to cruise ship passengers or crew members, that's an easy fix. Just like the Eagles, you can put an ordinance in place say they cannot sell to people with out-of-state licenses. That'll curb that right there for any concern of selling any of that marijuana to passengers or crew members. If they don't have an Alaska license, don't sell it to them. And with the taxes you get from the revenue you get from the sale for that, I think some of it should go to bringing that dog back that the police used to have. Last fall or last winter at the Clark Cochran Christmas Classic, I talked to then Sergeant Bernstein, who's now the lieutenant, and he said they no longer have that dog because it cost too much. How much? He didn't mention the price, but he said it cost too much. And I think you should look into considering bringing that dog back for KPD so they can catch those that are bringing that drugs in and killing our youth. Thank you.
Thank you. Lawrence Stanton.
Good evening. Hello, I'm Lauren Stanton, and I live in the city, and I have off and on for about 60 years. My birthday is next month.
Congratulations.
And Dave Kiefer should know about this. All right, so, and I made an enormous effort to shorten this little talk. Just a few days ago, I was confronted with a shocking headline in the news. Quote, Ketchikan's mayor and manager take a free cruise to Los Angeles, unquote. Unfortunately for us, and I speak for all of us as citizens of Ketchikan, it was picked up by news outlets in San Antonio, Anchorage, Washington, D.C., and even by U.S. News and World Report. This is not good news for us. They didn't pick this up because this was good news. The papers printed it, and they put it online. You can Google it. It's across the country. Everybody knows what you did. In the article used by most of the news people, it was reported that, quote, the Juneau Borough Assembly nixed the same trip for its officials, and it also rejected a motion to have the borough pay for their cruise, unquote. Why is this important? Well, I'm going to read some provisions of the municipal code. The code is not just guidelines, like as in the Pirates of the Caribbean. This is real. First, I'd like to read the Declaration of Policy 205010. The City Council declares that public employment is a public trust and that it should be free from the danger of conflict of interest. It is declared that high ethical standards among public employees are essential to the conduct of city government. It is further declared that holding public employment is a public trust and that as one safeguard of that trust, the people require public employees to adhere to a code of ethics. The purposes of this chapter are to set reasonable standards for elected officials, officers, and city employees, and to assure that municipal officers in their official acts are free of the influence of undisclosed private or business interests. Well, that's what's there. I'm concerned that there were violations of the Open Meetings Act, the private meetings section of the Ketchikan Municipal Code 2.04.025 regarding addressing matters in executive session that may not be considered at such executive session, and violations of 2.05.060 regarding improper gifts. Improper gifts, 2.05.060. A municipal officer or public employee may not solicit, accept, receive, directly or indirectly, a gift or a promise to give, whether in the form of money, service, loan, travel, entertainment, hospitality, employment, or any other form that benefits the personal or financial interests of the officer, employee, or his or her immediate family under circumstances in which it could reasonably be inferred that the gift is intended to influence the performance of official duties, actions, or judgment, or is intended as a reward for any official action by the officer or employee. Food is specifically exempted. But this is the important part. Gifts with an apparent value of $50 or more given by anyone other than an immediate family member who has during the preceding year done business with the officer or employee in his or her official capacity shall, and shall in this means you have to, shall be rebuttably presumed to have been given for the purpose of influencing the performance of official duties, actions, or judgment, or as a reward for official action taken by the officer or the employee. An officer or employee who receives a gift which is subject to the presumption, anything over $50, set forth in the preceding sentence is, or which is prohibited by section, shall within 30 days from the receipt of the gift report to his immediate supervisor the name of the giver, the description of the gift, the relationship of the giver, and any facts which rebut the presumption. For the mayor, that's city council. For the city manager, that's the city council. Has this been done? Have facts been presented which rebut the presumption? Probably not. We'll go on. The presumption means that the gift must be reported along with other requirements. Once reported, as in 060, certain actions must be taken by the persons receiving the gifts, including those actions laid out in 2.05130 and 2.05140. This is our Ketchikan Municipal Code. It's easy to read. 2.05130. I just printed this off on my computer today. Declaration of potential violations by public employees. A municipal officer or public employee who is involved in a matter that may result in violation of KMC 2.05060, that's a gift worth over $50, shall, 1, refrain from taking any official action relating to the matter until a determination is made under this section. That is, I don't believe, if this stuff hasn't been done already, that anyone can take an action related to the Cruise Ship Association tonight. Also, B, 2.05.130B, a public employee manager shall make a written determination, whether an employee's involvement violates 2.05060 through 2.05130, which I just read, if the supervisor determines that a violation could exist, that is, could exist, the supervisor shall, that means mandatory, reassign duties to cure the employee's potential violation to the extent practicable, and in 2.05140 violations, penalties for misconduct if it is found that the misconduct occurred. If a municipal officer or public employee has been found to have violated this chapter, the manager or the city council, in the case of the employee being the manager, shall, number 1, shall order the employee in writing to stop engaging in any official action related to the violation. And in this case, my interpretation means that this employee and the other person involved, the elected official, can take no action in regards to the Cruise Ship Industry Association or any cruise ship industry, especially Norwegian Cruise Lines, or anyone related to them. Number 2, may order divestiture, restitution, or forfeiture. In this case, it would be restitution. We don't know how many free drinks were offered. We don't know what food they ate. We don't know what shows they saw. We don't know the value of this cruise. We don't know anything about it. Number 3, may take disciplinary action, including reprimand, demotion, suspension, or dismissal. These actions could also involve violations of 2.05025 and 2.05.050. A final note regarding reports in the news that either the council voted or took action in executive session to allow these gifts that would be a violation of state law and the city code. If there is no exception for this kind of thing to be in an executive session, if action was taken in executive session, no actions are supposed to be taken in executive session. If the action was in an open meeting, allowing the mayor and manager to take free cruises, as reported in the news, quote, Amlon said he discussed the trip with the city council in an executive session last February, and he told the Ketchikan Daily News that council members thought it would be a good networking opportunity, unquote. Under the code, that would not be a defense to either making the report, overcoming the presumption, or taking the cruise. The council cannot waive the law, nor vote to exempt the manager and mayor from the law. No one is above the law. This country is going to have to learn that. My expectation as a citizen is that the code and the law will be followed, that restitution will be made, and that the mayor and the manager will no longer be involved with negotiating anything with the cruise industry. They now have an appearance of conflict of interest and violate the public trust as per the code, as I read in the beginning, 2.05.010. That will exist forever. There must be a report, a determination, a written ruling, and possibly restitution and reassignment of duties. Thank you very much for your time.
Here, here.
Are there any questions?
Any questions?
I can tell you that I have at least double the amount of information here and lots of other questions, which I may be coming to in the next couple of weeks if action isn't taken.
Thank you. Chris Park.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council. That's a little bit of a hard act to follow there. But I did see some valid points in there that are concerning for me as well. I'm here to speak on the port expansion RFPs. And my major concern is that at the end of the day, it's going to be the cruise lines and, more importantly, the cruise line passengers that are going to pay for any port expansion. Not us, not our city tax dollars, not any of us individually. It's going to be the cruise lines and the passengers that are on those ships. They're going to ultimately pay that. When I first came here 21 years ago to be involved with the Tongass Trading Companies, I'm now the general manager there, I wasn't that familiar with the cruise ship industry, and I heard about this company called Cruise Line Agencies. I said, well, what is Cruise Line Agencies? Well, they're the representative of the cruise lines in our city. They represent all the cruise lines in a sense. It's their agent in port here to represent the cruise lines to our citizens and to our industry here. And so they don't have, from what I've seen over the 20 years, they do not have a specific cruise line they favor over one or the other. Yes, they are partnered, I think, with a couple lines specifically, but they do represent all those other lines. My big concern as a private property owner down here and a public business owner down here, with a large investment in buildings, infrastructure, people, personnel, we've adapted over the years. We've got a significant investment downtown. I will have a major problem with any port expansion that gives exclusive management to a port company of any kind, a port management company of any kind, or a specific cruise line where there will be preferential berthing involved in that. When we expanded the port, 2006, I was involved with one of the groups, APOC committee, to help get that Vaughan vote passed where we expanded berth 3. And when that was all done and the lease was done for berth 4, it was written in the berth 4 lease that they would put 75% of the passengers on docks 1, 2, and 3 and 25 on berth 4. But it was also understood, not necessarily in writing in that lease, that we would try to evenly distribute 25% of the passengers to all 4 berths. And up until the last couple of years, that's been done pretty good. In the last couple of years, we cannot handle the bigger ships and evenly distribute it. So it actually has been skewed to berth 3 and 4, which does help Tongass Trading Company over some of the other private property owners. But in the end of the day, it should be split evenly, 25% to all berths. Berth 2 has never gotten 25%. And the excuse always is the uplands can't handle the buses and stuff like that. Well, why did we rebuild the Visitors Bureau and put it right in the middle of where we could be staging buses? That Visitors Bureau should be removed and put a block back like it is in every other port town so we can handle all the buses and uplands for all 4 cruise ship berths. And at the end of the day, when we get done with this project, if we can get done with it and get through the community, it should be managed by the city in conjunction with cruise line agencies. They do the scheduling of the ships for the entire Southeast Alaska. They're right here in our town. They've been here and good partners through all this time. If we're not happy with our lease in berth 4, then renegotiate it. I think that's an ideal model to expand berth 1. We don't need to bond. We all know that the city doesn't want to take any more bond debt, even if it's non-recourse revenue bond like we had on the berth 3 expansion. Let's get together with them and look at that for a proposal. Anybody we get outside of here, they're going to want something in return for that. If it's Global Port Holdings, they're going to want something for. They're not just going to come and do it for free. Neither is the Pacific Cruise Lines. They're going to want payment. They're going to want preferential berthing. They're going to want something in payment to compensate themselves for that. Okay, and as far as I've seen, yes, Cruise Line Agency is a business. They do make money like any business, and as well they should. But they've been a good partner to the city. They've done a good job. They've done a fair job of running this port. And what I'm seeing is they're being dismissed, and I have a problem with that. And I will definitely have a problem, as I would think any other property owner downtown here that has a business property down here is going to have a major problem with anything that's not conform with what we're doing now. So I don't know why we'd even waste time doing an RFP out there for a company that we really don't want running our port. We want our city run. We want the city run the port. Okay. I don't know if Mr. Corporon's here tonight. I guess not. But you guys all know the pains he goes through trying to get a fair docking for everything, and it's not an easy job. If you put something in there where there's preferential docking, it's going to be a lot worse. And I just think it would make it a really terrible thing for us to do, and I think it would be a detriment to our town, it would be a detriment to our business. We can develop this port, we can develop the uplands in a conscious manner, we can handle these bigger ships and still keep the town livable for everybody. But it is our economic lifeline right now. We don't have a lot else other than this to drive. I mean, the shipyard laid off a bunch of people. You know, fishing, we're not having a derby again this year for the second time in 70 plus years it's been around. Commercial fishing, I'm in that industry as well. We sell commercial fishing supplies. It's very limited. It's not that strong right now. There's a lot of things there. So fishing is very limited operation for us. If we didn't have these cruise lines here, just imagine if we didn't have a single cruise ship here. We'd be Petersburg or Wrangell. Not that those are bad things for those cities, but they're much, much smaller. And anybody that harks back to the way of life it used to be 30, 40 years ago when we had a mill going and stuff like that, that's not going to come back. I mean, if any of you believe with the national politics going on now that we're ever going to see a major logging industry again, it's just not going to happen. That I can see, not in my lifetime, probably not any of our lifetime. Tourism is a fairly clean, for the most part, economical way to have an economy in our town, and it's done a good job for the last 20 years. And I'm really afraid that we're going to screw this up. I've got 100 employees that I'm concerned about, keeping them busy. I've got lots of local customers I'm concerned about keeping merchandise for them to have to shop here. And I've got, again, we have a major investment downtown. We need to keep this thing on the even, utilize the resources we have right here in town. There's proposals out there that are way less than $100 million, that could be done in phases and could be financed by the cruise lines through the cruise line agency or directly with the cruise lines themselves if you don't go through them without taking out a revenue bond. They'll pay for it if we come with the right plan, but they're not going to pay exorbitant amounts. Anything you're going to do with anybody else, they're going to want something in return for it. That's the bottom line. And thank you for your time.
Chris?
Yes.
So you're thinking that the workage fee that we charge today, that we would come up with a design and just raise the workage fee across
Absolutely.
all 3 or 4 docks?
Absolutely, because they'll pay for it if it's going to benefit their ability to dock here. Okay, we know that, and we don't need to pay somebody else to negotiate it for us. They're going to want some return. They'll do that. Obviously, again, we have resources to negotiate with them, but the cruise lines they'll pay for it if they want to get their ships in here. And anything we do with anybody else, they're going to take a cut. It's going to be even more for them. And And face it, the cruise lines, they don't have to stop Ketchikan. Of all the three major ports, Ketchikan is the most vulnerable to have ships moved to other places. Think about it. Right now, with the Jones Act, 65% of the cruise ships coming out of Seattle, they have to stop in Canada, either Prince Rupert or Victoria or Vancouver, right now. What's to say, instead of staying 4 hours in the middle of the night in Victoria to satisfy the Jones Act, they say, you know what, we don't need Ketchikan, we can stay 10 hours in Victoria. And they get a little bit of international flavor before they come to Alaska, due to ports. I mean, that's entirely reasonable. We would be the port that's vulnerable. They're not going to cut out Juneau. It's the capital. They're never going to cut that out. That's the center of the cruise industry. They're not going to cut out the glaciers. They're always going to do a glacier. You have your open jaw cruises that are going to go to Anchorage so people can tour the interior. That's going to happen. But Ketchikan is the most vulnerable port if they want to find other alternatives. We obviously saw what Sitka did. I was in Sitka just last week. And they had a cruise ship, and the people were begging for it. Their downtown business district is decimated because the community did not support the cruise ship industry, and they have no economy either. I mean, fishing is stronger up there than it is here, but even there it's waning a little bit. They were just, all the downtown businesses that were left were very thankful to have a ship there. But it's docking in a private dock out of town. They have to get bused into town. And a couple of the businesses I know of, they've actually relocated to Icy Strait, Hoonah, who's built a second dock there. So there's an alternative port there. They're getting most of what Sitka used to have. As the industry grows, and they're saying we might have 1.8 million people to Alaska here in the next 10 years, obviously not all those people are going to come to Ketchikan. Not all those ships. They're going to find another alternative port somewhere. We've heard that Hobart Bay, maybe they'll go to Wrangell, or maybe Metlakatla. I don't know, but there's other places they could go, develop another destination. It wouldn't be that hard for them. They do it everywhere else in the world. There's no reason why they wouldn't do it again here. And we're real at risk of not only not gaining but losing, because these ships are replacing the smaller ones for good, bad, or indifferent. There is no going back, and we really don't have. Again, if we had a mill going with 500 or 800 people out there and 3,000 or 4,000 loggers in the woods like we did 40 years ago, we could probably afford to say, we don't want any more. But I don't see any other industry in town. I mean, the shipyard's subsidized. Even when it's going, it's subsidized. The hospital's subsidized. Our major employers in this town is the hospital, the shipyard, the grocery stores, and then Walmart, and then us. Okay? And the grocery stores and Walmart and us are not subsidized, but the hospital and the shipyard is. I don't see anything else. There's fishing. Again, that's very limited entry, and obviously we all know how short the fish stocks are right now. You can't fish kings right now. It's very, very limited. Most of the people that made their living trolling for king salmon years ago are trolling for dogfish now. They're doing that for the export market. That's the biggest part of our trolling business in our marine store. And there are some people fishing kings, and it's still viable, but it's very, very limited, and as all the other ones. And even the big ports of Sitka and Homer and those places are getting more and more restrictions. They're seeing declines in their fishing right now. And so I mean we got some choices to make, but I think we really, really have to think this through. And I think we should look at what we got here locally as resources. The way I understand it, maybe I'm wrong, the lease that we have on Dock 4 for the cruise ship berth there is a non-recourse one. If the cruise ships stop coming, Survey Point Holdings is liable for that, not us. Okay? I mean, we could have that in the new one. I think they're willing to take the risk. Okay? Now, maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know. I haven't read that lease. I haven't been privy to that. But I think we really have to look at what we can do locally here. Relying on some outside company from Florida or wherever, I don't think is the answer. We've been in this business long enough. We can figure it out here locally. The cruise lines will pay for it through their passenger fees. We just got to negotiate what it is, make sure we have a good plan that's affordable, do it in steps so that it's not too big a bite for them all at once, and have a plan for it. We definitely need to do Dock 1 first. We know that. That's pinching the other ones. That would help develop Berth 2, could be done in conjunction or as a second phase, which will help Berth 3 open up a little bit. We should finalize and negotiate and get that Berth 4 done right away. There's big ships coming now. There's more big ships coming in the next couple of years. And we can accommodate them without over hindering the town if we do it right and we think it out. Yes, there are some uplands that needs to be done. That can be thought out and done as well, as long as we can get the main plan for the port done right away. So, thank you for your time. Any other questions?
I appreciate that. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Riley.
Good afternoon. My name's Riley. I live on 3419 Denali. I don't have a written statement or much to say, but everywhere around town, everyone I talk to more or less is saying the same thing, which is when is enough. It seems to me that already this year, trying to make it through town, I mean, it takes you 15 minutes to get from Talbot's to Tatsuda's. There's people running out all over, and it just seems like year after year, everybody kind of says, boy, we're at about the limit, and then the next year we go to 1.3 or whatever million we're at now. And, you know, like the last guy said, obviously it's a lot of economic benefit to the community, but I do think there's a limit where we have to say, okay, our island's only so big, and you know, that's just what I keep hearing. So I wanted to voice my concern because, like I say, everybody I talk to says that, and then I read the papers, and it's like, oh, we're going to bring in another however many 100,000 people or whatever year after year. And one other concern that I had, or suggestion maybe, is looking at this head tax thing. I mean, I've looked into that, and my understanding is basically, you know, it's pretty much got to be used on the docks. But it just seems like that there could be a way to get more of the cruise ship tourist money into the community. I don't know if there could be another deal that could be negotiated, not called a head tax, but it just seems like maybe there could be some ground to be had there. But that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of the people that are on the list. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak at this time? Seeing none, that brings us down to the consent agenda.
Did you want to add anything to it? Or should I make a motion?
I think make a motion.
Move to consent.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Please read the items.
Approval of minutes, regular city council meetings of April 22nd and May 2nd, 2019. 2018 Fire Department Command Vehicle number 52-759 replacement, Kendall Ford. Budget transfer, garage and warehouse division vehicle lift installation. Liquor license premise diagram change for Newtown Liquor. Accepting the procurement of 34.5 kV pole-mounted breaker and associated equipment for the electrical division from competitive bidding written quotation requirements of the Ketchikan Municipal Code, Annexter Inc., exempting the procurement of advanced metering infrastructure AMI equipment for the electric division from competitive bidding written quotation requirements of the Ketchikan Municipal Code, Canon Technologies Inc.
Thank you. Any questions? Please call the roll.
Williams?
Yes.
Zingy?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
Kiefer?
Yes.
Flora?
Yes.
Gage? Yes. Bergeron?
Yes. That motion passes. Bring us on to unfinished business. General government, Ketchikan order of Moose Lodge number 224 liquor license. We have a lay on the table. And in that, the clerk's office has received an email from the Borough Tax Department as of May 16th, 2019, indicating as of the due date, Ketchikan order of Moose 224 has paid their 2019 first quarter sales tax.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move the City Council direct the City Clerk to take such action regarding the Ketchikan Loyal Order of the Moose Lodge 224 liquor license as determined appropriate by the City Council.
Been moved and seconded. Judy. So at this time, if they're current, then we could lift protests, is what I would understand.
Do we have to do that by motion or anything?
Well, the direction's on the table, so we'll just do a roll call.
Okay.
So that would be the direction to give the clerk to send a letter to the Appalachian Board to list the people.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, so how long do we have to send this letter? I mean,
How long?
yeah, what's the
30
drop
days.
dead date to send a letter that says that we're removing our protest?
Was in the packet, the letter for, I think they had 180 days from when the board met on
Right.
April 29th.
Well, the reason I'm asking, it seems like every council meeting I get a sales tax update from these guys saying whether they're paid or not paid. So they sent a letter in and said, well, yeah, these guys are great. Then next week or next quarter, we get another notice that they're again behind on their sales tax. I think we should let this go until the last possible time that we can as far as sales tax goes and then send it in. I think it's premature to do it now. So I'll be voting no.
Well, I think they met all the requirements as required to date, so I think there's nothing to hold our judgment in regard to their liquor license at this time. And if something were to materialize in the future, that would come as another item.
A separate action.
Any other further discussion? Please call the roll.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Flora,
Yes.
Gage,
Yes.
Bergeron,
No.
Williams,
Yes.
Zingy,
Yes.
Coos.
Yes. Thank you very much. That passes. Brings us down to item 7, new business. 7A1, ordinance number 1894, declaring that 319 Main Street, Ketchikan, Alaska Old Fire Station number 1 is surplus property, authorizing the sale of that property, provided for the filing of a referendum petition. First reading.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move the City Council approve the first reading ordinance number 1894, declaring that 319 Main Street, Ketchikan, Alaska, Old Fire Station number 1 is surplus property and authorizing sale of that property, providing for a filing of referendum petitions and established effective date.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Dick, anything?
No, I think we've been talking about this long enough. To me, we need to get it declared surplus, allow the public to protest the surplus, and then we decide how we're going to sell it. Because we haven't decided whether we're going to go seal bids, go for an outcry or what. So and if there's any conditions, then that can be done after this part here follows.
Thank you. Mr. Berger.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about this particular agenda item, and about what the argument is we'll get this thing back out on the tax rolls, and I think that that's a good thing. Get it on the public hands, but generally and overall, I think it misses the mark by a lot because we have properties that we could be saying that are surplus. We don't really have a plan. This is helter skelter. I don't really know why we're doing this. Somebody came early on and expressed interest in it, and now there is no interest in it. I mean, from anyone, nobody's coming up, yes, get this thing out here so we can bid on it. That's really not happening. So, I don't know if the city or a nonprofit or whether we're, preserving the best interest of the city by putting this thing out. So, we hope that when we do things up here, there's a larger general purpose. I don't see it here. I don't see why we're doing this. And I don't think I'm going to vote to sell it at this time until I have a clearer idea of what we're doing generally. So I'm going to be voting no.
Are you saying that you want to combine this with other surplus properties as some sort of aggregate deal, or what exactly? What would be your better idea?
Is this okay if we have a free flow?
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
So, okay. So what I'm hoping for in general is a more coherent, policy of what we're doing with properties that we're not using, or list properties that we would like to get rid of. Make this a public and open process so people can see which properties besides this one that we're going to look at getting back into the public hands, and then do that. And so that we can all get an idea within ourselves, within the city, if, like I look at that building and I see all kinds of opportunity for, maintenance, shop, things like that. And I wonder why nobody in the city's been saying anything about it. So, I just think that this, I think if there was somebody that was going to do something spectacular with it right away, I'd be going, yeah, let's get it out there. Let's put it out for sale. But now we're just going, well, some of the interest is waned, so let's just get rid of it. I don't think that's a good thing to do. I don't think that, like I said, I think we should have a larger policy or a plan about what we're going to do with properties that are similar to this one that the city has. That's all.
Yes,
Yeah, a few years back, we did do what Sam was suggesting. We listed all the properties and we tried to sell them. I think we sold a few. We could do that again. I'm all for I'm not in support of the motion here, but if we want to try again with our properties, I don't have a problem. Might be a good time again.
yes, Mark.
I think Sam has a good point, but I don't think it precludes us from moving this one forward. Everything we've talked about, this has been very transparent. There was interest, put a price tag on it, see if it's still there. I agree with what you're saying is a more coherent, all-encompassing program. But like Mr. Pease said, we've been talking about this for a while now. And let's see if we can get this thing sold.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with Sam that we need to do this to all the properties that we've got that we don't need, but we've carried this one a long ways, and there has been some public interest shown in it, and we know that staff says this is costing us $50 grand a year almost to keep it sitting there and rotting away. So it's time to move this one on. We've been through the process.
Anybody else? Yes, Dan.
Yeah, I see the point that all the new other guys are saying too. So I think it's okay to get it out there. But also at the same time, I think that we have less of an opportunity to appear like we're doing improper things if we just pull these things out of a hat one at a time. I think we should take a look at this thing more globally and get some properties out there. So I think you all know what I'm trying to say. Thanks.
Anybody else? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Flora?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
Bergeron?
Aye.
Williams?
Yes.
Zingy?
Yes.
Coos?
Yes.
Tiger?
Yes.
Yeah, motion passes unanimously. Moves us on to item 2, ordinance number 19-1896, adding a new section 5.20.016 to the Ketchikan Municipal Code entitled On-Site Marijuana Consumption Prohibited, conditioned upon the voters' approval, first reading. Do I have a motion?
Your Honor.
Yes.
I move the City Council approve the first reading ordinance number 19-1896, adding a new section 520.16 to the Ketchikan Municipal Code entitled On-Site Marijuana Consumption Prohibited, conditioned upon voter approval and established effective date.
Second.
Been moved in second.
Your Honor.
I'll give Lou first shot at it.
Okay.
I have nothing. Go ahead, Sam.
Go ahead, Sam.
Thanks. Didn't mean to jump on anybody there. This was my bright idea, and since I've made this idea and brought this suggestion forward to the council, I've been thinking pretty hard about this one. I think that on-site consumption of marijuana in the downtown with the amount of people that we have downtown is not a good idea. It's a public safety issue. I don't think it needs to go before the voters. So, I called Bob today and talked to him about this one, about coming up with an alternative motion, which I do not have. So, I'd like to, ask the clerk if there's a motion that we could put forward or phrase that would take out the public vote part of this, or should we just make a motion to table indefinitely and bring it back without the public vote?
Just amend it, Kelly.
Yeah. There's two ways you could probably do this. We could either defeat it and put an alternative motion forward.
Well, if we defeat it, then it's off the
Or you
table.
could, yeah.
Or you
Offer an amendment.
Or you could withdraw
Yeah,
your
just
motion.
amend the thing off, the voter approval part.
Or you can just take off the voter approval. Mitch. Let's get some clarification.
Yeah.
Good evening, Your Honor. One way you can certainly do it is just to make a motion tonight to amend it that it would be an ordinance of the council and, effective as provided, the ordinance in the statute. And I can just bring it back with our usual effective date, which I think is second reading plus publication in 30 days.
Well, I guess my concern is that we've listed it as something that would probably go to a public vote, and if we change that here, does it come back again for first reading with the amendment, or?
No, I think that's entirely fine. Where we can create problems if we have major significant amendments on the second reading, because at that point there's no window left for public comment before it becomes effective.
So, how do you want to proceed?
Your Honor.
Yes.
I move that we make this an ordinance of the council without a public vote. Does that work, Mitch?
Yeah, that's fine. That gives enough to get the appropriate amended language back to this body.
All right, so you're voting to amend the amendment for us. Discussion?
You need a second.
You need a second.
Oh, you need a second for it.
Second. I want to clarify something. Are we saying that we're going to get an amended motion back for first reading next meeting?
No, it'd still be second reading, but it'd be the amended ordinance, so people would have time to come speak to it.
I think you could do it either way, but it would be proper with the amendment you're talking about to have it be amended and come back for a second reading.
Okay, so we're going to amend it, comes back for a second reading. Okay.
Yes.
I think my preference would be to amend it in such a fashion that it would have to come back 2 times more. We made this an agenda item and published it as being conditioned upon voter approval. And I can respect your change of mind, but we said this is what we were going to discuss and do. And now we're going to change it. And I think if the change is to be made, then the public should have the maximum opportunity to voice their opinion, what they think.
So one process would be to propose the amendment and have it come back as a first reading at the next meeting.
And we can do that?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine?
Yeah, that's great. I'm all for the process.
Does that work?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, you need your exercise. That's good.
Yeah, stay there.
If that's the council's will, it might be cleaner and not change anything to just bring back a new ordinance. You'll have 2 readings.
Okay.
And that's the way it'll read from the get-go. You're going to be on the same timeline.
Okay.
Judy.
So are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Are we doing this because we think it's going to pass if it goes to the voters?
No.
I mean, we said we were going to bring it to the voters, and now we're not going to bring it to the voters. I guess I want to know, why would we not do that?
Yeah.
No, thanks. No, that's a good question. And the reason that I thought that I didn't think it needed to go before the voters, because in my mind this was an issue of public safety, and I think that's an issue that we can address here at the council table.
Yes.
So you think that people aren't going to consume it if we don't allow on-site consumption? I mean, it's happening now. Isn't it safer if they have a place to do it? I mean, I remember having this same argument when we were struggling with retail, and I thought, well, gee, isn't it better to know how much THC's in something than not? And to me, they're doing it now. I just don't know. I agree with the smoking part. I certainly don't want to see that. But I guess I just don't see the difference in somebody grabbing a cookie and walking outside and eating it, or sitting in and somebody making money off them eating the cookie, I guess. I don't know. I think if this went to the voters, it would pass. And I think that the reason we're not taking it to the voters is because we know that. That's I'm sorry, but I mean, come on. let's be real. I mean, that's what I think. So I'm not going to support it, but there you have it.
I agree with you.
Yes.
Well, so when you're sitting at home and you're thinking about all these things, that's the debate part of this whole issue is always really interesting. And so I don't ever want to appear like I want to change something because I think the outcome is going to be different. I think the outcome is going to be negative. I don't think that people are going to vote for that. I think that they're going to see that, we have increased people downtown and so on and so forth, and would probably vote in the negative, as I would. But you brought that up. I mean, so that cat's out of the bag about, well, you want to kill this because you think that the vote of the people is going to change the outcome. And that's not what I was thinking at all. But now that that's out there, that has that appearance, I'm going to withdraw the motion. So,
The amendment.
The amendment.
And there was a second. And
Is
Dick,
that okay with the second there?
you okay with that? Okay.
If we figure
So
out
the amendment has been withdrawn, so the original motion in regards to with the approval of the voters is on the table.
I have
Yes.
some questions, though. Because this says on-site marijuana consumption prohibited. The on-site consumption of marijuana and marijuana products, including by smoking. If we put this to the voters, we're saying that the smoking is okay too? Is that, or is it just edibles? Because my understanding was this just affected the two properties downtown, and that they couldn't have.
They can't
because it's not.
They don't have a sales tax.
Okay.
So if you put this out there, if it says yes to on-site consumption, that includes smoking and edibles, as long as they're within the terms of the state law.
Right. Okay.
That can change every day.
Yeah.
That's not.
I mean, I could be a marijuana board and they could decide tomorrow smoking's okay, which of course would violate a bunch of other.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to go there either. So
Because it's been changing weekly.
This is prohibiting. Sorry.
It's all right.
Go ahead, Dick.
So the question to the attorney may be, if the state, I can't figure out whether they've approved it or not approved it because they've changed their mind every other day. But if they approve this, we still got the option to deny it. I don't care where it goes in town. We can deny one of these establishments within the city limits if we want to. Is that true or false to the
By
attorney?
ordinance, we have the home rule.
It's just like we could have denied these two stores we got if we.
Correct.
Anyway.
Yes.
As we speak, the current state rule is that you may have on-site consumption subject to the various restrictions, not all of which they may have addressed. But the local municipalities retain a local option to prohibit that consumption. That could be done directly by this body, or it could be done by the voters, or this body could direct it to the voters. So
I guess the question, though, Mitch, is can we split consumption in regards to edibles and smoking?
Yeah.
to allow one and not the other?
Yes.
I think so. We at the last meeting, it specifically said we wanted to have a blanket. Could we provide gradations within their system? I think so. I need to go back and review all of that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I'm with Dick. We have that home rule, so I'm happy with putting this to the voters. I'm going to make their decision. Myself, I'm against the smoking at the establishment, so see what happens.
Anybody else? Dick?
Yeah, I think the voters will probably vote this down. I mean, that they will support this myself. But I think we've got the body here that could do this, and I think when we do this, we're just passing the buck to a town hall meeting type organization and not the type of organization we are. So I think I think Sam changed his mind, and he rightly did so, because it's our responsibility to look out for the public. And I would just take out the vote and say that there's not going to be consumption of any of it, because actually the edibles are worse for your health than the smoking.
So, yes, Mark.
I can see where Mr. Coos has a point about we're just kicking the can down the road. In general, I would agree with that. On this particular topic, putting it to the voters mirrors exactly what happened when there was a vote to either legalize or not. So this particular discussion has already existed in that arena, so I think it's appropriate.
And this would be a vote just inside of the city limits?
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, city voters.
All right. Any other? Yes, Dick, and then Jan Lee.
One more comment. Like Mark said, it was a referendum on doing this, or you call it an initiative. It passed, but it did not include on-site consumption. That's something done by a state regulatory board under their authority. So it wasn't not part of the initiative of on-site consumption. It just made it legal.
Well, that's why it's coming up now.
I don't know. It's just they had a big argument whether they could even do it.
So, Mitch, did we pass a local ordinance in regards to dealing with the legalized marijuana that has any language in it in regards to public or on-site consumption? We already have something that exists from the original law, because at that time it was very explicit that you weren't supposed to consume it really other than a place but your own property.
I don't think that we have anything that deals with it explicitly, or in use of those terms. What we do mirror the state law. I don't off the top of my head know that we bothered to restate it, but it cannot be, and I don't know about consumed, but cannot be smoked in a public place. You still can't do it in a public place. And I would think at first blush that as it stands now, those marijuana stores are such a public place. And the exercise that the state's gone through at this point is to carve those out as an allowable place subject to their restrictions.
Yeah, so I was just wondering if it said that it mirrored the state law, or we actually wrote in our own ordinance that they couldn't consume it in public space.
I don't.
Yeah, I don't
look.
recall.
I don't recall that being in there.
Okay.
I think it was left to that the state would enforce that public place law under their statutes.
Okay. Well, I think maybe go back and take a look to make sure, because if it's listed in our ordinance as they can't consume in public place, we'd have to change the ordinance and say they could,
Well,
even if the state changed their own law.
I think with the way that the state is now, unless this body or the voters do something different, that the on-site consumption will be allowed.
Thank you.
We got a second shot at this. This is the first reading.
Yeah, correct. Jan Lee, did you have something?
I don't necessarily agree with on-site consumption, but since it was put up there for the voters, unfortunately, you let that one out of the can. Now you get to own it. And I honestly think that would be wrong to take it back. It needs to go to the voters.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please call the roll.
So actually, before we do,
Yes.
Can the clerk actually say what? Since we've kind of come back and forth, can the clerk actually say what we're voting on?
Yeah.
So I'm not confused.
The motion that was originally put in the ordinance.
Okay, so
The amendment was withdrawn and there were no other amendments.
conditioned upon voter approval is back in.
Correct.
Okay, just making sure, because, I can go to vote, right?
Please call the roll.
Bergeron,
Aye.
Williams,
Yes.
Zingy,
Yes.
Coos,
No.
Kiefer,
Yes.
Flora,
Yes.
Gage.
No.
That passes 5-2. Moves us on to item 3. Preparation for a request for proposal, RFP, reconfiguration of Port of Ketchikan cruise ship berth facility for Mill, Mill and Partners, Inc.
Your Honor,
Yes.
before this discussion starts, I have a request that I would like the attorney to address Mr. Stanton's comments tonight, so I have a better understanding of where we're at.
I was going to ask the same, so.
And in regard to what specifically?
Well, there was a lot of issues brought up in regards to violations, the ability of people to vote in regards to moving any of this forward, and things like that. And there is a report laid on the table right now from Carl in regards to that trip and the benefits and who we met with, and a cost estimate, etc.
Well, let me speak then, I guess, first as to the trips taken with the cruise line. That type of thing was first brought to my attention at one point last year when an invitation had been extended to officials and employees here, and a number of other communities and local governments up and down southeast Alaska, and as I recall, and the people that actually went, I haven't recommended this, from other communities, not from all over the United States, at least I think the West Coast. I do recall that Mayor Landis, I think the invitation had been extended. I don't know that if he ended up going, he may have. And had some discussions with the sponsor at that time, and then again with the manager. The question that you look at really is this, and we can go ahead and call it a gift to the benefit to the employee, or is it to the benefit of the municipality? It could be a bit of a mixed bag, so which would outweigh the other would be another way to look at it. And with the changing scene, the changing issues, the changing physical configurations that we're looking at in this town, and I think up and down the coast, there was a legitimate purpose there. It wasn't just some kind of useless junk. The next question, then to my mind, and as it's spelled out in our code, was had the city done any business with the sponsor within the past 12 months? And it had not. I was told it had not. I think the most that could be said is they pay the same, set rates for municipal services as anyone else. And so, that being the case, the presumption in our code doesn't come into play. There have been no businesses being done, and opined that would be acceptable and would not be in violation of the code. When it came up again this year, from what I understood at least, it was very, very similar circumstances. It had been brought to my attention that Juneau officials did not go. And I recall taking a look at it at the time. Juneau's code is somewhat different from the city's. The borough's code's a little different too, harking back to when the borough mayor and maybe other officials went on that it's not written the same. And also going a little bit by memory, what I believe happened in Juneau, and the minutes were there, is that it was brought forth to the council. It wasn't determined that this is necessarily wrong, but the council decided that no, they should not be doing it. I think it was a split decision or split vote, as I recall. And I don't know if it was stated explicitly, but the thing that occurred to me was, I believe at the same time this was going on, Juneau had not wrapped up the passenger fee litigation as well. And so to some extent they had clearly been going on with business, or just thought, it was majority of the assembly thought that they would just forego that opportunity.
Thank you. Anybody else?
We're discussing this issue right now?
What's that?
We're discussing the trip right now?
Yeah. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay. I already talked to the mayor about this, and I want to preface this, first of all, by saying that I'm not opposed to someone going on this trip. I am opposed to the idea of it being essentially a free trip from the cruise lines. And I apologize also in advance. I wasn't here when you guys were discussing this. That was 2 or 3 meetings ago. And I don't remember if I was at the meeting in February. I think maybe I wasn't, because if I had been, I probably would have raised this issue at that point. I think there's value in going on this trip, but I have a real problem with us not paying for it. If we think there's value, and I believe there was value, then I think we should have actually found some way to have reimbursed them for the trip as opposed to just going as a freebie from our standpoint. Because I think that it puts us in a bad position from the outside, certainly, going forward. We're going to be negotiating with these folks. That's almost inevitable, them and other groups. And if I was looking from the outside, say, oh wow, they picked NCL's plan. Well, they wanted a cruise ship. They wanted a cruise them. So I just don't like how that looks. I just don't like how it looks. And I agree there was value to going on this particular trip. But my first thought when I heard about this somewhat after the fact was that, what about the laws that you can't take a gift or the code? Because it sounds like we're dancing around that in some way. I guess I would appreciate, and obviously, I'm not quite as adamant on this as my friend Mr. Stanton, but I certainly think going forward, we need to have a policy in place or something where if we decide it's important enough to do this, we pay for it. So that we're not ever in a situation where we're taking freebies from people that we will probably have to negotiate with at some point down the line. And we will negotiate. So that's my opinion.
And I appreciate that, Dave. So one of the clarifications is the fact that everybody on that ship went for free.
Right.
It wasn't a normal cruise from port to port to port. It was a convention or a corporate meeting of NCL with many different people that were travel agencies, marketers, engineers, anybody that serviced, I think, the cruise line. And there were other communities, Port of Seattle, Alaska communities aboard that. And as Mitch had alluded to, these types of things are where you gather information and try to figure out how we move forward with the project, what other people are doing in the world, because we're pretty isolated in what we do. And I appreciate everything that Mr. Stanton brought up, and there was no intent of subversity or anything like that. So I apologize if it seems like there was, and that's not the case. But so, Sam.
Thank you. I think that the idea that somehow the value of this trip would somehow influence this council into having these guys having more favorable negotiating position with us is ridiculous. I think that the trip that you went on had value to the city, period. I think the net networking and all the people that were involved in that were integral in part of a greater decision that we were trying to get as far as what we're doing on the dock. I think the optics of it were not good. But if you want to talk about bad optics, on Facebook, I saw the Girl Scouts selling cookies in front of the Stony Moose. I mean, that's bad optics. So I think that, not to get sidetracked, but in all seriousness, I don't think that there was anything improper here. I don't think that was anything that was a gift or anything else. I think that you went on this thing on business for the city. That's how I perceive it. I'm glad you went, and I think it was of value to the city. That's all I have.
Mark.
I definitely agree with both of the previous council members as far as value to the community. In the end, I think this was really good. I was approached by a local resident about a week ago, so I've already had this discussion, and I'll say the same thing that I said to this person, and myself included. I don't think there was any intention to hide anything. It came up. We definitely would have been better served to have this discussion before this trip in open session. I know it's 20/20 hindsight, and we can't change that. We should use this as an example of just being more careful in the future. But I don't think there was any undue influence or anything like that. I think in the end, these types of discussions are going to be important with varying parties to try to reach the best outcome we can for the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this trip, whatever was said, was of value to the people that attended. And it's going to be of value to us as we negotiate with probably several different cruise lines as we get there. Because I don't hear of anybody saying we want this one or this one or that one. We're really, really open to getting what this community needs, and the cruise lines pay for it, not us. I think that's what Mr. Parks said. How it's paid for, that's a different, will have to be worked out, but I think it gives us better information to negotiate with, and I think all of that, for the most part, is going to be totally open to the public. Even these plans that are kind of there, it's really hard to read, this $90 million. Those are kind of fuzzy, big numbers and no pictures. So I think that I believe we've proposed a public meeting sometime in June, which more information is going to be out there and available, and there's no decisions made until after that. And everybody in this room needs to come and tell us what they think about what's said. Because I've got some feelings, but I don't have my mind made up where we're going, except I know we can't run them out. That's the main thing. Nobody sitting in this room can afford to have them gone. Otherwise, everybody's taxes in this room are going to go up if you want the streets and water and everything else to stay the way they are. So anyway, I don't see any false pretenses or anything here other than honorable to kind of keep the city in the best mean we can.
So, yes, Yanni.
I know it looks, I guess it does look like a gift. However, I think that with the amount of decisions we need to make, the going down to Florida was important to see it for ourselves. I think the other thing that needs to come out in the next meeting is we need to lay it out on the table. We also need to not put skirt around the issue of, and people need to be educated on the costs of Berth 4 to the people. It costs us money. They built it, but we pay $1.8 million a year, whether anyone berths at that berth or not. And we pay in excess of $7.50 per passenger as the passenger rates go up. I have said it before. When do we meet our limit? And we're hearing that here tonight. I think with the construction, it's going to be harder to tell how that looks. I believe next year will be a little easier to see how that looks when we don't have half the town gated off. I have to admit, I really like the new fencing around the federal building, keeping everyone in, not stepping off the curb there. But in all, the scare tactics, the community needs to be very diligent on understanding the scare tactics. This community, whether anyone likes to think, no, people won't come here, people want to come here. People come here 5 times a year. There's people getting off that boat that have been here multiple times. There's people coming in on the planes now to stay longer. There's people coming in on the ferry because they heard about the ferry system. The 20 years ago, the cruise line was driven by the cruise line. The cruise line is now being driven by the consumer. Consumer wants to come here. And I hope that even if they decide they're going to go build their own private island, that as a state, we see that for what it is. And we don't let it happen. That's all I got to say.
Judy.
So, I guess going back to this cruise, I get that perception is reality. For myself, I didn't really, I won't say I would never, I didn't think about it as being a problem because nobody who went on the cruise has a vote. I mean, Bob's the mayor, the manager doesn't vote, the rest of us are the ones who make the decision, so I didn't really think about it. But and I don't think that anybody's decision would be influenced. Yes, we probably shouldn't have had a discussion in executive session, but I don't recall it being this big discussion. I mean, I thought of it more as, okay, they're going to like somebody's place of business. But I agree we could do a better job of that.
Okay.
Let's get a motion.
All right.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move the City Council direct the City Manager to begin the process of preparing a formal request for proposals, RFP, for the soliciting cruise industry interest in partnering with the city to move the Port of Ketchikan waterside and uplands infrastructure improvements forward, as detailed in the staff's report dated May the 8th, 2019, including the presentation to the City Council by BAJP, etc., regarding how such a solicitation process might move forward. Said RFP, when finalized, will be submitted to the City Council for formal consideration and approval, and direct the staff to take such other associated actions as the Council determines appropriate.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Dick.
Yeah, I think what's said there, even though it may appear that we've made a decision, we haven't made a decision except to move forward to how to improve these docks so that we can accommodate some larger vessels. And what that configuration is, even though there's an outline here, I don't think it's fixed. And the other thing that's not there is what we can work with with the cruise lines or whoever else we deal with to the uplands, because we know we need work on the uplands to make this all work. And so there's a lot of pieces that I think are going to come forward, and it's going to be clearly and openly evident to everybody when we get there. I won't say everybody's going to agree on it, but I think in the end that our goal is to make sure this community keeps a thriving visitor industry coming in here that helps this economy. And I could go on. I've got some concerns about all those numbers in the back, but that's details that I think is going to come up. I don't know what earthwork is whenever it's 1 foot thick concrete. So somebody's going to have to explain that to me. But anyway, we need to move this forward because Otherwise, in 2020 or 22, we need to be ready for ships of the size of the Bliss, because the little ones are not going to come here. And if you want to get really scary, and which I don't think we're even accommodating ourselves for, when they turn from 4,000 passengers into 8,000 passengers, we aren't going to take them. We don't have the space. So if we can get 4 berths that are going to take the ones that are about the size of the Bliss and the Royal right now, I'd be real happy, and that they pay for it.
Lou.
I agree with Dick to move it along. We had people come here talking about, the Berth 4 guys and everything. And I'm interested in projects, and I'm glad they came, and I've encouraged them to submit a proposal. But I want to see what everybody else has got ideas too. I think before we make a decision, we got to see who wants to be a player, what are they going to be playing with, and so if we can look at it and we can have the community look at it and see what we want to do. I have no idea what these guys are thinking or proposing. But I know we have a goal, and like I said, some of my questions real quick, Carl. This is to go, say, to start making this RFP, what's the timelines and what's the June 11th meeting all about?
June 11th meeting is for B&A to come up, twofold purpose. One, to go over the independent estimators report that they did of the Moffitt-Nichol design. More importantly, we begin discussing with the council the parameters of an RFP, what you want to see in it, including uplands and other port operational services.
So we'll be telling them then, hey, look at either Berth 1 or Berth 1 and 2 or Berth 1 and 3. We'll be making that decision at that time. So we give a specific.
We would be seeking council direction. That's correct.
Okay. And then what's the time? Can we get this turned around in 30 days after we give them direction? So my goal is to be able to get these proposals out, give them 45 days, and hopefully get proposals back before everybody leaves town and October 1st.
I haven't spoken with B&A about turning around the actual RFP document. I don't think it will be that complicated. We've looked at the Seattle RFQ that's online now. I think a 45-day response period would be more than reasonable.
Because that would get us right at the 1st of September, I think, if we do the 30-45. But before everybody leaves, I'd love to have them be able to take a look and see what we're discussing.
I'll have the answer to that first question about the time to prepare the RFP by the meeting of June 6th.
Okay, and then when we talk to them about, I don't want to get into June 11th stuff, but we can be more specific and say, we want to see options for 1, 2, and 3, or 1 and 2. Are we going to have to be so specific to tell them that, we want a barge here, or barge not here, or whatever? Or do we not need to do that?
I'm speaking from my perspective solely, not B&A's. I would not think so. If we're able to secure industry participation based on the discussions that we had with various players down at Seatrade, whoever we end up partnering with, if that does happen, they're going to want to have input into the design. And there's no sense spending a lot of time and money putting a design in an RFP if the entity we partner with has different ideas and they want to see a different configuration.
Yeah, because I want to see the different ideas and see what everybody else is thinking. So, good. Go ahead. I think that's it. I'm really happy to move forward. And, everybody's wanting to talk about this, but until we see all the stuff on the table so we can talk about it, I think Bob had a great idea, is pin him up on the wall at the Civic Center and have a meeting and have everybody take a look.
Jen Lee.
So, just to clarify for everyone, this is basically voting to allow us to look at proposals. It's not us voting on a proposal or anything such, but then we will also be including the community in those proposals.
Right. Well, yeah.
That's what it was.
Just to be crystal clear, you're not even voting on releasing an RFP at this point.
Okay.
You're authorizing us to prepare it. The final document will come back to the council for final review and approval before we release it. But the start of that process would be at the June 11th meeting that we're proposing, if the council is open to that date.
Mark?
Yeah, a couple things. Having been fortunate enough to go on this trip, I think BNA has done a really good job to date. I'm going to say to date because that's all I know. We'll see what happens in the future. But without these guys sat us down in meetings with the CEOs of the largest cruise ship lines on the planet. And nothing against our own staff, but without those guys, that just would not have happened. We weren't dealing with intermediaries for the most part, okay? And I want to take a moment to address this, Joe. Riley, right?
Yes.
I hear a lot of what I think when you speak. When I first got on the council, one of the very first things I did was approach the city manager and ask, so how do we get more money out of these cruise ships? Not for the cruise ship guys, for the town. Well, you can't do that, Mark, because by law, the tonnage clause just doesn't really permit that, okay? But since I've been on this council, I've been talking about what are the benefits for the cruise ship industry beyond tour bus drivers, store owners. It's important. They should prosper. It's good for the town. But in 2005, BNA, these guys had a report to the city, and this was supposed to be about the holistic development of the city, not just the cruise business. 20 years later, I think that was largely missed. Because folks like yourself, folks like me, are going, what about the rest of us? So I'll give you the Reader's Digest version of some of the discussions we had. We had people ask us, what do you want? Well, we want inclusivity. We want a port. We want uplands. We want inclusivity. We want you guys to invest in our infrastructure. What about those of us that are here in February when you guys aren't here? Our town should still be in good shape. These are things that are important. Environmental compliance, things like that. It's the beginning. I'm going to make no promises. Maybe we don't get any of those things. But that's exactly what the things that we were asking for. There won't be any surprises when these guys come to the RFP with what we as a community thought was important. We listed out what we thought were our most important points, and now they'll have the opportunity to respond. And hopefully this is I literally told one guy, the party's not big enough. We've got to get more people behind it. That's why there's so much blowback in this town. Because for a lot of people, if you don't have a store and you don't have a destination or a tour, there just hasn't been enough community benefit. So we want to try to enhance that. We'll take our best shot at it, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Sam.
Thanks. I'm going to add on to Mark's comments just a little bit. I think one of the things that was asked in this packet was how many tourists are too many, or what are we building for? What are we building our infrastructure for? I mean, what is the capacity? If you're going to build a house and it's just me and my wife, I'm not going to build a 20-room house. I don't need a 20-room house. I think that part of the programming of this thing is that this is how many tourists are enough is the question that we should be looking at right now. This is the one that we need to figure out right now. What are we building for? What is our target? Where is this thing going? What are we ultimately doing? 1.8 million? I don't think so. I think that's an important question. So, if we talk about the RFP, I think that's an important component of the RFP is what are we building our infrastructure to? Other things that I want to see is if we're going to do a public-private partnership, and Mark was talking about the exclusivity of the people that are betting from this is a small group. I think we need to expand it. We need to talk about philanthropy in the RFP. How can we build that as a component of this deal? The uplands development it has to be hand in hand with this thing. I didn't hear the young man's name when he came up, but I think Mark mentioned it. Right now we have wharfage and dockage fees. I think that we need to look at our fee structure that is another fee that allows us to use it for other things other than what the very restricted wharfage and dockage fees are used for. So when our consultants come up, we need to be asking these questions. We have, we will instinctively know about where this thing wants to go. We need to know how many people are we building this for? Our consultant from the last thing says like 1.8 million. Well, that's where we could see this thing going. I don't think that anybody in Ketchikan would want 1.8 million tourists. And I think we should build an infrastructure that represents what we want, where we want this thing to go. So it's a question that we need to ask. Those are my comments, Your Honor.
Thank you. So, in regards to some of the stuff that was talked about earlier in person to be heard, we're not, inventing anything new here. We're looking at what the industry is doing across the globe. There's very types of partnerships everywhere, whether it be Caribbean, Mediterranean. They're moving into Africa. They're working in Asia. And it really depends on the infrastructure they have to work with. And there are areas such as Venice that have said, wait a minute, we got too many. This is going nuts over here. And they've had to restructure their port operation to better manage the influx of passengers. And it may not be the fact that it's 1.6 million. It may be the fact that we put a daily limit on, because there are days when we have very few passengers. There are days when we're just flooded with passengers. And if that could be spread out over the week, more of a norm, that's another option that you can look at, because there are new cruise companies coming to Alaska in 2022. And those are, we don't want to just add them to one of our busiest days. That doesn't make sense for the community or the retailers or the ships themselves. So I don't know what the answer is to where we can grow to. But I think that as some of the council members have expressed, until we put out an RFP to see what's being offered, and I think that Mr. Park's idea of doing something more locally with just warpage fees is fine, but we got to figure out how we do that and get the cruise industry buy-in to that across the board. So when you talk about, there are some specific types of, partnerships that were out there. One of them is Port Management Group, and that's the one that where somebody comes in, they work with the debt service, and they become the port manager, even though it's a city-owned facility, and they're kind of the middleman between the city and the cruise industry. Well, they're a third party, and that's going to cost money, and somehow they got to raise revenues to pay themselves. That's one option. The other one was when they were talking about partnerships and preferential berthing. So what preferential berthing is that we're going to give you $50 million. We have 4 ships, and we would like Monday, Tuesday, and they have to tell you 180 days prior to the season that they're bringing these ships on these days, and that's what they're looking for. They put up the money to build the dock, and that's kind of what the collateral is. And it might make, I'm sure, a problem. And CLIA has worked as far as scheduling for years, but this is stuff that's happening all over the globe right now. And that isn't forever. That's on a term, could be 25 years. Whatever it takes for them, because they would raise the warpages to pay themselves back, but they're the upfront financiers of that. And so at some point that goes away again. And so I think what we're looking for here is, what are our options? We've heard all these things, but we don't have anything out there, a specific offer from anybody in regards to what they're willing to do. They may only put up a percentage of it, and we're going to have to still figure out how to get more money. And then I remember what happened when we put the original cruise passenger tax in at a higher rate. We had pushback from the industry, and those were mobile assets, and they took some of them away. And so we had to go back and renegotiate that and come up with something that was acceptable to the cruise companies. And that's what we want to do here. We want to be working in partnership with the cruise industry and not putting them in a situation where they go someplace else. The other thing to consider is that when they make an investment in a community like Ketchikan, like Chris says, then they have ownership here, and they're not about to probably sail off to someplace else. And in those ownership, in those agreements, they could give you a guaranteed passenger count a year, so that if they drop below that, they would still pay in order to make the debt service on whatever they're doing. So there's all kinds of things that plays into that, and we don't know what those are yet. We haven't seen anything on paper or have received any offers. This is just what's happening in the industry and things for us to look at. So I think that's what this first step is. I think, as Chris spoke, and we all agree, is that I don't want to see the burden put on the community. I don't think the community should bond for the ports. I think that the port user should pay for that service, and that's the passengers and vessels. And so I think that's what our end goal, and I think we're in agreement on that. It's just how we get there is the question. And so this is all new territory for everybody, and I think that we have to do our due diligence. We have to have public input. We got to look at it. And in regards to that, I would, at this time too, I'd ask Carl to go back to the group from Berth 4 and see where we're at with those negotiations, and bring back a report to us to see where we're at with that. We have some numbers on the Berth 4 operation, and we have a lease agreement right now that we're living up to. But there's a proposed amendment to move it forward, and so there's some discussion that still has to be had about that. And it's just business. It's just business dealing. It's dollars and cents. What makes sense for the community? Are you going to put public money into private docks, or how do you want to move those things forward? And those are all discussions that happen. It's going to be the same thing with 1, 2, and 3. How do we move those forward to the benefit? Now, one of the things that they said is, even if we keep the passenger count at the same, bigger ships are going to be delivering those passengers. And the problem is they got to get 4,000 people off of those in a short period of time in order for them to work in the shop in the community. And if it gets so tough for them to get off, that's one of the things that we experienced. It was, an hour and a half to 2 hours before they were able to disembark everybody from the ship with a ship that was only half full. And some people are just going to stay on the boat because they're not going to put up with the lines. So those are the reasons why we have to do these upgrades to these docks, so we can get the ability to service the ships that are coming. So that's where I'm at. It's really an open process, and we're going to have to work through it. And I don't think we don't want to hide anything. We want the public's input on this, but we got to remember that what we do is in the best interest of the community. When we talk to those heads of the companies, we told them that, yes, this is a destination, but there are people that live here in this community. This is our community, and it impacts us. And we got to make sure that we have something that works for both the community and the cruise line going forward in the future. And that is in regards to upland services. Anything else?
Sounds good.
We have a motion on the floor?
Yep.
Please call the roll.
Zingy.
Yes.
Coos.
Yes.
Kiefer.
Yes.
Flora.
Yes.
Gage.
Yes.
Bergeron.
Aye.
Williams.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Before we leave this topic, I would actually like to ask Mr. Amelon to address a couple of points that were made during public comment.
Absolutely.
Okay. The first one I think was probably just a slip of the tongue, but one of the people at the podium said that the city received possession of Berth 4. I don't believe we've ever gotten possession of Berth 4, nor are we supposed to.
We don't own Berth 4.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I think it was slip of the tongue. The other one, though, touches on what Jan Lee mentioned. I guess since we heard it from two different people on addressing us, I guess I wanted to have a very clear public statement. If no additional visitors came to our community tomorrow, would we still pay the company that owns Berth 4 for a cruise?
I'll defer to the finance director.
Because I believe what we heard at the podium was not correct.
Yeah, the lease agreement required a minimum lease payment of $1.8 million.
If the industry left tomorrow, we're still paying.
That's right.
Okay. Just want to make that clear because we've heard that several times in recent meetings, and I just want the public to know the truth.
So I think we have some numbers on Berth 4. If you could make those available and lay on the table or action items in the future when you come back and report. I appreciate that.
I will do that, Mr. Mayor. And if I may, I'd like to clarify one other issue that was mentioned tonight. In issuing an RFP to gauge whether there's industry interest, there's a lot of speculation going around town, a lot of rumors that we're thinking about selling the port or that we're selling the waterfront. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. That's not what this is all about. When we started going down this road, the one parameter I gave the council that I'm going to repeat tonight is whatever solution we come up with, I want the city to be able to retain control and respond to constituent concerns. And that's what's going to be driving my assessment of any proposals as we go forward. And I just want to make that very clear. We're not giving up the port. We're not selling it. We're not giving up control of the waterfront. And that is the last thing that I would be promoting.
Hey, Carl, can you also add to that with we pay for Berth 4, the fact that we also pay their property tax and their sales tax, and how much that's been since we've been in that lease?
I will, as Mayor Sievertson suggested, reach out to Ketchikan.company, give them our most current thinking, and I'll report back to the council.
Perfect. Yeah, because they are an option also.
I don't want us to rehash Berth 4. Berth 4 was a different time and place. Everybody goes, well, we gave them that Berth 4 because we didn't want any competition. And the downtown businesses guys didn't want them to have competition, and they wanted us to get that thing leased or in control of it so we could make sure everybody got 25%. They had the upper hand. They got a great deal. It's a good deal for them. And what it did for us is provided us many, many more people in town. They provide millions more in tax, sales tax revenue. And every time you look at the budget, look how many millions of that tax money goes into our general fund. So we don't have to raise property tax. And we made that decision years ago. Let's use all the sales tax money instead of raising the mill rate. And it just drives me crazy when everybody keeps hounding after this Berth 4. It's a good deal. We had to pay it, and it got everybody happy along the waterfront. If we didn't do it, we'd be in competition with those guys over there fending for votes. So it did take a price to get that competition away. I hate to rehash Berth 4. Berth 4, we need to look at where we're going now. You know, the Berth 4 guys are in on this too. They want us to they'd rather us to heck with this and let's just talk about Berth 4. But we're not going to do that. We're going to look at everybody. And so let's make sure we just keep going forward. That's all I have.
Thank you. Moves us on to item 7A4, City Council representation on steering committee for contract number 19-02, consulting services for the lease of the Ketchikan Medical Center, ECG Management Consultants.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Can we take a quick break?
Yeah, we can. Would you like break?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. It's after 9.
So we're on item 7A4, City Council representation of the steering committee for contract number 19-02.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I move the City Council designate 2 council members to serve on the steering committee for contract number 19-02, consulting services for the lease of the Ketchikan Medical Center between the City of Ketchikan and ECG Management Consultants as determined appropriate by the City Council.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Judy.
I think this is a great idea. I did vote against this consultant, so based on that alone, I'd like you guys to consider me to be one of the members on that committee.
And you'll hold them to the fire.
So how do you guys want to do this? Do you want to go by nominations, by appointments, whatever you want to do?
I vote for Judy.
I vote for Judy.
Yeah, you're in, Judy. There's no question.
Volunteers. There's got to be
no one's going to
volunteer. Got to be in.
It's just fear.
So we need a second one?
Second. You got a
I
second.
vote for Jana Lee.
Does anybody else volunteer?
Who wants to volunteer?
I'll do it
Okay,
since
yeah.
I started this.
Yeah.
Margaret, you volunteering?
I would do it if selected. I don't want to.
Yeah. If Mark wants it, though, I'll let him out. I got stuff going on.
I nominate Jana Lee.
Okay, we have a nomination.
I nominate Mark.
Too late.
So,
Mayor's choice then. Got three.
what's that?
You got
Mayor's
three
choice.
volunteers, mayor's choice.
So is Kiefer doing it too?
No.
No.
No. I am allowing you to take all this glory.
Selected.
Okay, I'd put Mark on. Mark's been engaged in this from the get-go, just like Jan Lee has. And as Jan Lee said, there's a lot of time that's going to be involved with this particular process. So, if there's no objections,
None.
Well,
Oh, sorry.
can we have
Mark,
three
you
people
accept?
on there instead of two?
We're going to get feedback.
You want to do it?
Oh, I'm good either way.
Are you?
I know Mark will.
We'll hear all about it.
Well, Mark is volunteer. What's the name?
yeah, do that.
I can be the alternate.
Did you vote on this motion yet, Bob?
Yeah.
So Jana Lee will be the alternate if one of us
Absolutely,
can't meet.
absolutely, we can do that.
Happens if she.
Do you need to vote on this?
I can just appoint him, I believe,
Okay.
if there's no objection from the council. All right. Done. Moves us on to Ketchikan Public Utilities. B1, procurement and additional professional service related to the Telecommunications Division Underwater Fiber Optic Cable Project. Hazelbray Holding Limited. Is that pretty close?
Your Honor, pursuant to Section 312.030 of the Ketchikan Municipal Code, I move the City Council approve the procurement of additional professional services related to the Telecommunication Division's underwater fiber optic cable. I hate these little screens. I'm sorry, too far. Project from Hazelbray, that's a good Scottish name, Holdings Limited in the amount which may exceed $50,000, in an amount which may exceed $50,000. Authorized funding from the Telecommunications Division's 2019 Internet Expansion Capital Account and direct the General Manager to authorize the purchase of such professional services on behalf of the City Council.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Dave?
Yeah, no, let's do it.
Can we hear from Ed about what this is about?
What's that?
Can Ed come up and tell us what this is?
Ed? Sure. You come up and give us a little synopsis of what's going on here?
Yes, sir.
Bandwidth, that's what's going on.
Good evening, Ed Cushing, Division Manager, KPU Telecommunications. As you may recall, KPU Telecommunications is involved in what for us is an unusual project, and probably one we'll only do once, which is proposed construction of an undersea fiber optic cable from Ketchikan to Prince Rupert, British Columbia. We hope to build that cable in 2020 if all the pieces come together. One of the things that's unusual about this project for us is it's a multi-year project. We typically don't do multi-year projects. But in this case, we started this project in 2018, which involved a bathymetric survey or underwater survey of the proposed route, development of an RFP, initial issuance of an RFP, and subsequent taking the RFPs apart. We decided to wait until 2019. 2019, we're doing permitting, we're doing revisions to the RFP, we're doing some negotiating with City West down in BC, and then hopefully we'll issue the RFP this year, award the bid, and then next year do construction, and then we'll be very involved with the construction activities. In all of that, half of this project takes place in British Columbia. We have been utilizing Hazelbray as a consultant to help us in 2018. We're still continuing to use them all of this in 2019. We'll use them again in 2020. Technically, last year we spent slightly less than $50,000 in consulting fees with Hazelbray. This year we intend to spend slightly less than $50,000 with them, and probably next year we'll spend slightly less than $50,000. Technically, you could argue that because it's less than $50,000 each year, there's really no reason to get council approval because it's under $50,000. However, we are concerned in doing that we could potentially miss the intent of the KMC, because you could argue you're just stacking, my term of art, stacking this expenditure, and you would argue that the correct thing to do is what we've done here. Make sure we've just advised the council that year over year over year, we will spend a lot more than $50,000 with this consultant. There's a possibility we would spend more than $50,000 this year. So the best thing to do is what we've done here, is ask for your approval for a $50,000 PO for Hazel Bray this year, and let you know that, gosh, we might run over, or we might not.
Any questions?
So this is part of our grand plan to take over telecommunications in Alaska?
I would be satisfied with just taking over Ketchikan.
Just having enough bandwidth here would suffice.
I don't know. Kotzebue could really use it.
So there's something in this that bothers me, and it's the fact that there's no limit to it may run over without us being notified. I don't mind it running over, but it's like having a contingency in like 10%. And I know it's going to vary, but I just get ouchy that I'm not looking after the public funds right if sky's the limit. And you didn't say that wasn't the limit, but you didn't say it was. So I need a way to know that when it starts approaching $50,000, the manager just says, hey, it's going to go over by other than $10,000, and you can guess it.
If we reach the point that we think it's going to go over 50,000, we're going to be back here. That's point A. Point B is in the public interest. That's why we're here. We want you to know that this is multi-year, and we're not just behind the scenes.
You're saying it's 50,000 every year for 3 years or something. That's good.
The real intent in bringing it forward is technically you can read the KMC. If I do a contract for less than $50,000, I don't have to bring it here. But if I do two contracts that are less than $50,000 but together exceed $50,000, I hear from the finance director saying, this really isn't kosher. We need to notify the city council of what we're doing, and that's why it's here.
Perfect.
That's good.
Okay.
Works for me.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? Please call the roll.
Goose.
Yes.
Kiefer.
Yes.
Flora.
Yes.
Gage.
Yes.
Bergeron.
Aye.
Williams.
Aye.
Zinni.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Brings us on to item B2, ordinance number 19-1895, amending Ketchikan Municipal Code section 11.04.130 entitled Inspection Concerning Access to Utility Customers' Premises, renaming that section Access to Premises, first reading.
Your Honor, I move the City Council approve and first reading ordinance number 19-1895, amending the KMC 1104-130 entitled Inspections Concerning Access to Utility Customers' Premises, renaming that as section Access to Premises, and establish effective date.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Luke?
Nothing.
Do you read those things on TV? You know, the ads for the medicine. When it's bad happening, it sounds real familiar.
New side job.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
So I was looking at this, and so it's KPU or it's duly authorized. So do these guys have little pins on their things that says I'm duly authorized KPU agent?
We have ID cards and ID badges that identify us as KPU and general government employees.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Gage.
Yes.
Bergeron.
Aye.
Williams.
Yes.
Zinni.
Yes.
Goose.
Okay.
Kiefer.
Sure.
Flora.
Yes.
Thank you very much. There's nothing in the way of vouchers. Bring us the manager's report. Carl.
I have several to get it started. This morning we were at a meeting at Sales, Marketing, and Customer Service. We are a few days late, but today we did acknowledge that it was Kim Simpson's 10-year anniversary working for us. And great job. If I could have council's indulgence, Joe, do you want to come up for a minute? You should have one of these flyers relative to what we're trying to do with enforcement of smoking and hawking in the downtown area. And I wanted Chief White to address that real quickly.
Good evening, Joe White, Chief of Police. We are currently in the process of trying to select a seasonal temporary code enforcement officer to help with the downtown area. So in the meantime, we have had investigators and patrol officers going down to get the information out to the store owners that the hawking rules are here, they're going to be enforced, and the smoking ordinance that's new this year is going to be enforced. At this point, we haven't seen too many issues, but the season's new. So we will be addressing that.
Phone pictures later.
Please. Our goal too is to again have a seasonal temporary code enforcement officer, but this year we're going to reallocate an officer to the downtown area for summer. We're going to call it a summer projects type thing. Juneau, I believe, does a downtown officer program. It seems like it's pretty effective. So this year we're going to take our SRO as soon as he gets out of school in 2 weeks, a week and a half. We will make him basically the downtown liaison, and hopefully that can alleviate some of the issues we've had.
Excellent.
Go ahead, Steve.
Might I suggest that part of that SRO's duties would be patrolling the businesses, particularly the ones that have awnings that are down in the vicinity of one of the downtown marijuana emporiums, because as we have noticed, as my wife has noticed in recent days, whenever the weather is like today, a very large number of people seem to leave that emporium, walk out and go, oh, look at that lovely awning, and they stand under it smoking their materials they have purchased, which of course is remarkably illegal. And if we lean out and say it's illegal, they're like, well, who are you? So it'd be nice if someone in a uniform would actually pass through there occasionally, and not just there, but virtually all businesses around them. Same thing. Right. They come out, that's where they stop the smoke.
No, absolutely.
And so just thank you.
We right now we're really struggling with resources again. Yep. Right now he's doing double duty, and the detectives are doing double duty, and our patrol staff is again basically running for the most part 2-man shifts. So we're trying to do the best we can.
No, I know. I'm saying when this new person comes on, it'd be lovely to have him just walk through that. I think even a police officer walking through the area a couple times a day would certainly help to clear out the people who think that that's a logical place to go.
We'll get them down there. Thank you.
So, Joe, how are you on staffing right now? Are we fully staffed, or do you have people out at Academy? What's going on?
As we sit here today, I have 6 bodies that I cannot put into the schedule. We have one open position, 1 in training, 1 at the academy, 2 on different various stages of military deployment, and 1 hurt his shoulder and is out on a workman's comp issue. So, with that being said, that's if we're fully staffed, 4 per team. If we're down 6, that's a team and a half. He's not brand new. He just made it through the FTO program came up from Georgia. I don't think I've introduced him. I'll bring him from one of the meetings. Very competent gentleman, but again, he's basically 3 months on the job. So we're struggling. There's just no way to get around it. So, but we definitely are trying to do different things to alleviate some of these issues, and we're definitely looking at. I can only encourage people when you see these things, give us a call. I go back through the logs and look, and if we have 10 complaints on speeding in school zones, we're going to be at that school zones. If we don't get complaints on hawking or smoking, I don't know where to focus the problem on. So, and as of today, I kind of looked, and we haven't had an abundance of calls. So, again, if people are watching, listening, call us, and we'll try to focus on those areas. Mr. Kuiper, thank you, and we will try to focus on that. So,
I appreciate it, and I hope people are understanding the fact that right now, as short of personnel as you are, that you're doing the best that you can with the resources that you have.
We're trying.
Thank you for that.
Don't in some small towns they give the mayor a red light.
Yeah, deputize.
Raise your hand.
Give him a taser.
Sometimes the previous one, too.
Yeah, right.
Actually, sometimes the entire council.
Anything else?
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Couple more.
Yeah.
As we discussed earlier, B&A is scheduled to be here on June 11th for a special meeting to walk you through how an RFP might look for the port. It was suggested that you might want to consider having that at the Civic Center. We can do that, or we can have it here, whatever the council prefers.
Of course, if it's here, it's be broadcast, right?
Right.
There it can't be broadcast.
Right.
They just bring their camera though.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I think it would probably be appropriate that for the size of audience that we could potentially bring, and I think we also have the opportunity to put things up on the wall. And in that process, Carl, we might put in a work session portion, so if they want to get up and mill around and look at some things during the presentation, we can do that.
And I will make arrangements with KPU to film it. It just won't be broadcast live.
Perfect.
We'll air it. Just two more. As I'm sure you're all aware, construction continues out front, and you know, my sympathies go to the contractor, DOT, and the businesses. They're all having a tough time. With Mark Hilson's help, we've been trying to coordinate with some of the businesses. As a result of that, we have stationed a crossing guard at the intersection of Grant and Front, and we'll do that through the end of construction. That's not intended to be a permanent thing, but we are going to do it to try to accommodate the businesses. The other thing we're going to do, and this came as a result of our business owner on Mission Street, and we got DOT's approval to do that. We're having some banners made that can go on the fencing to let people know that the businesses are open on that side of the street. So we are trying to facilitate things, and it's a slog for everybody. The last thing I have is we're working with the Attorney General's office. As those of you who are at C-Trade know that there was a lot of discussion about the hot water that Carnival was in and the proposed sanctions that Judge Seitz was considering. And those were basically prohibiting Carnival vessels from landing in American ports. Well, that clearly would not be a good thing for Ketchikan if Princess and Holland America were all of a sudden saying you can't come into Ketchikan. So we're saying that sanctions are definitely warranted, but don't negatively impact the communities because they aren't responsible for what happened. So we're working on language with the Attorney General and some documentation to send up to them. They're going to be filing something with the court. But we wanted to let you know that was going on, and that's all I've got.
Can I
yeah.
One thing I noticed today, Carl, down at the Schombar bypass, is when there's one of the big buses in the turn lane to go into berth 4, there's a blind spot with that crossing, where people are crossing. So traffic's coming through. They're stopped, people are walking, and no one can see the pedestrians that are in that crosswalk that are trying to cross the street. It might be worth seeing about a flagger there, or because somebody's going to get hit there. It almost happened today.
One of the considerations was moving the crosswalk to the other side of the intersection.
That might work. That might be better too, because then there's a line of sight. Because there's no line of sight if there's a bus here. Yeah.
We'll take a look at that and get back to you. I did have one other, Mr. Mayor. We talked about what we're going to do down at the port as a major decision. However, it's decided. We're going to try to keep an ongoing record and binders for you of the documents we're submitting as we go forward, so you have them here at meetings where you have to make decisions. So if you just leave them here, we'll collect them and we'll update them as needed. Have them here for the meeting.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And that's all I've got.
Yeah. one of the items that was laid on the table was this communication from the Maps Alaska Municipal League, where they requested the mayor's signature in working towards solutions. It's an open letter to the governor. Rather than get ahead of the council, I wanted to know have your input or forehand in order to sign it or not. Sign it. All right, you got it. Thank you. Brings us down city clerk's file.
Your Honor.
City attorney's file. Future agenda items.
Your Honor, I don't know if this would be an agenda item, but because of the cigarette butts along the streets and stuff, because people are now smoking more outside, not in businesses, I'm wondering if we can get more of those cigarette garbage thingies, outposts kind of, they have a couple down here by the Mission Street, but I know that, like, even in New York and stuff, they have them every so many feet and you don't see people use them. So it might be worth, and then possibly doing some PSAs on the harmful effects that cigarette butts don't disintegrate. They stay the same for 50, 30.
Do we still have the person who's supposed to go around in the summer and do that, or they took that away?
Yeah.
There used to actually be a borough employee who was his job to wander around downtown.
I'm not seeing it.
And clean up. I'm not sure they'll check.
So in regards to that, there is something in the flyer in regards to public smoking. An individual may not smoke outdoors or in public within 10 feet of playground or school, within 10 feet of the entrance of a bar or restaurant that serves alcohol, at a bus shelter, or within 20 feet of an entrance, open window, or an intake.
Yeah.
So where you're going to put them is going to have to,
right,
meet that
but at least
criteria.
then they're going in, and maybe even trash cans, because.
Brings us down to mayor and council. Dick.
Yeah, just one, and it relates to the June meeting with the folks coming up on the docks, is if we can make sure we've got something like when Moffett Nichols came in here and they had some preliminary designs, it helps people say, here's what it might look like, and they can give us comments, because they need something visual to comment on, both docks and give them a way to comment about what they'd like to see on the uplands, because we need to start that process of communicating with them to get that feedback, and then our contractors can help gel it up. So,
Kenley?
So, and just, so the that's going to be on the 11th, and I won't be here, but what's the 13th? Is that the meeting? The ECG Management Consultants? Is that it? What's it? So, or am I getting them confused? I'm looking at the little calendar.
ECG is on the 13th and BNA's on the 11th, right?
June.
Of June.
Yeah. Right. So.
As I get back the 12th.
Lacey confirmed that.
No, I just.
Okay. Sam.
So, Ketchikan was named in a publication as the best city in the state of Alaska. They have the best 50 cities, or the best 50 cities in the 50 states, and Ketchikan was voted the best city in Alaska to live. So, the stuff that we're talking about here tonight, we have the opportunity to make it not the best city in Alaska to live. And so I think it's important that when we're going through the port development, that we keep that in mind. I think the important question is then when is enough enough? And I think there's a lot of variables involved in that equation, like our uplands development. And we've talked about this before at the table about having other means of revenue and structuring our fees for the passenger ships that would allow us to use those fees for other things other than what dockage and wharfage fees are lawfully allowed to do. So I think we have a lot of things coming before us, and appreciate being a part of the discussion. and I enjoy serving with all of you nice people. That's all I got.
Thank you. Lou?
Well, you guys are still a great group to work with. You haven't changed. I noticed in there, look at the reserves, you haven't even spent any money. Right. Yes,
we're saving it for you.
Thank you. And then I'm glad you brought up the cigarette thing. I need one of those up in my house. They have all the bus stop right in front of my place now, which I perfectly enjoy. But everybody leaves their cigarettes there for me to clean up, so I think I'll get one of those. But I do have one of my security cameras pointed right to it, so if there's ever a problem with all the buses that come there every morning and every afternoon, we got it on tapes. Thank you.
Judy?
Not much. Good meeting. I've enjoyed the conversation, and maybe we'll get one before 10.
So much for that. A couple of hopefully very, very quick things. One, the situation that the chief mentioned in terms of having trouble finding people to take the jobs, that's throughout the entire state. And that's throughout virtually every part of the emergency services in Alaska. And we had an opportunity a few weeks ago to support a push by some of the folks in to see about getting statewide improvements in benefits and everything. And we said no. And keep in mind, these are the sort of things it leads to. It's not just a matter of us being able to replace police officers at will anymore, or firefighters. So just keep in mind, we need to be looking at opportunities to help improve things statewide. Okay, the other thing, this deals with bandwidth, one of my favorite subjects. I'm not sure where we're at these days in terms of how much Netflix is eating up our bandwidth. I'm sure it's high, 'cause it had been. But I just want to alert you, and some of you know this already, but there's going to be a TV show next year on Netflix called Outer Banks. It's being filmed in Charleston, South Carolina right now. And one of the stars is a gentleman who graduated from K-High 2 years ago, Rudy Poundcow. So we need to have our ducks in order, because if we're all signing up for Netflix to see Rudy on TV and we crash, it's not going to be pretty, and we're going to hear about it, and everyone else is going to hear about it, and frankly, there's going to be there's going to be great local interest when that show comes on, so we need to make sure we get the bandwidth.
Mark?
So we live in a really close-knit, pretty awesome community, and every now and then, unfortunately, we have some very stark reminders of what a great town we live in for all the wrong reasons. So my sympathy, our sympathies to the Sullivan family, all the people that didn't make it out the other day when they came up to enjoy their vacation. There is no silver lining, but it's been really nice to see this town rally behind folks that need it now more than ever. Wish them the best, and that's all I got.
Bob, can I add one more thing?
You may.
Just a minute. I picked up my packet and I got my same iPad that I had before. So I just updated my email, and since I've gone at this 1,489 emails.
I hope you get through those.
You have to answer tonight.
You know what? Dave reminded me of something. When are we going to see the report for the salary stuff?
It's my intent to have that to you at the next meeting.
Okay. And thank you all. I mean, the process that we go through here is sometimes slower than other people like. There are issues. I think that some of the public comment in regards to what's public and what goes into executive sessions, and we want to follow that very closely and meet the letter of the law. And I appreciate any time the public brings that to our attention if there's a perception that we're doing something wrong. That's how we know. So I appreciate everybody that brought that up. And again, I'd like to thank all the council for their hard work. One more motion.
Move to adjourn.
Yeah, it's good to sit here and feel good. I might think it for a while.
Yeah.